So Jagex decided to shadow drop the early access of their new survival crafting game RuneScape Dragon Wilds made in Unreal Engine 5. Now this does kind of beg the question of whether they just needed money or some investor proof of concept type bullshit and had to secrete the game out in this state to continue development, but it's an exciting turn of events nonetheless. The story follows an expedition of adventurers to the unexplored continent of Ashenfall. The original members of this expedition included some familiar RuneScape characters like the Wise Old Man, Vanica, Doric, and Zanuck. I have no idea what this particular group of people was doing on this island, but it would seem they ran into trouble when they discovered a dragon there. Yeah, you heard that right, a dragon.
They'll never see it coming.
As if dragons weren't spread throughout the entire world of Gielinor within the timeline that these people could possibly know each other.
Whatever in creation exists without my knowledge, exists without my consent.
So it becomes our job to go clean house with what are clearly pretty well-established cultures on this island and become what I would believe to be considered a conquistador. Just a quick note about performance. When I first opened this game up, I'm pretty sure it was trying to light my GPU on fire. But after messing around with some settings, I managed to get some somewhat decent performance and graphics. Here's what I'm running it on if you're curious. I still had a few issues rendering the environment occasionally, but it was definitely playable. The game has a passable character creator, if not a bit uncanny, and then immediately introduces us to some familiar faces. Doric shows us how to gather some basic materials, and you'll never guess what Vanica has us do. Alright, let's go see what Vanica wants. How much you want to bet it's kill some rats? He wants us to kill some rats. Who could have guessed? I feel like Zanuck's looking a little different these days. All of these characters help serve as an introduction to the way skills work in this game. There are currently 9 skills in the game, but magic and ranged aren't able to be leveled up just yet, so I've spent most of my time as a melee-focused character. The skills go up to a cap of 99, but in the early access they're capped at 50, at least for now. The main story quest we're following throughout the early access is Dragon Slayer, and I'm sure you can infer what the objective of this quest is. Gathering resources starts out the same way it usually does in this type of game, but soon you'll start unlocking spells to help you with your gathering skills. You can sort of min-max your harvesting by trying to hit multiple ores or logs per swing, or you can just use your gathering spells on cooldown whenever you have the inventory space. The floating rune essence can be shot down with a bow, or you can use the rock explosion spell to break them. Survival mechanics aren't too challenging. In the starting area, I mostly just killed animals and then picked up these cabbages that grew around my house to make stews for food. You do end up unlocking some pretty useful cooking recipes later when you get facilities. And it was pretty easy to just boil large amounts of water at a time in the cooking pot to avoid getting the dreaded schistosomiasis. A fair warning though, the game does not actually pause, and you can starve or be raided or become a victim of a random dragon attack quite easily if you AFK for too long. This is very un-RuneScape in my humble opinion. You'll also need to rest occasionally to refill your energy bar. The game will let you sleep through the night or just rest in bed during the day. It took me way too long to notice the weight of your backpack is displayed around the icon at the bottom, and I gotta say, I enjoy that feature. I recommend doing all your processing tasks at night and then just going to sleep. When you wake up, everything will be done. And another pro tip is that you can repair your weapons with magic, which becomes very important later on when they require expensive ingredients to repair. After meeting back up with the wisest of old men, he told me that being homeless and eating rat stew was some real West arty energy, and he would prefer if I built some sort of shelter to hide my poverty behind closed doors. The building was decent, but not without some quirks. Later on, I discovered that you could use a planning feature to lay out all your pieces, and everyone can see and build on the plan in multiplayer, which is pretty nice. If you open your build menu, you'll see this option on the left side, right next to the repair option. You'll also unlock the Eye of Oculus spell to be able to fly around and place things. You can dismantle items at any time to fully refund the materials, which is nice, but it's worth pointing out that in the year of our Lord 2025, there is no building directly from storage. You do have to have the items in your inventory if you want to build or craft anything. For RuneScape, this is expected. I just wanted to let you know if you're coming from another survival game. I built a simple little house that did me well for this location, crafted some basic starter gear, and saved the major construction projects for a later area. In hindsight, it may be better to just build your final base where the starting area is because of the way the raid mechanics work, but we'll get into that later. The wise old man then sent me to look for someone named Chthon in a nearby castle that was overrun with shit-eating goblins. No offense, Zanuck. The melee combat felt surprisingly good at this stage. Most weapons seem to have some sort of special attack that you unlock once you level up your attack skill. Leveling up also reduces the stamina cost of your attacks. Every weapon I've used so far feels pretty good to me, but it almost feels like there should be maybe a lock-on feature. I'm not sure about that, but it can feel pretty clunky to try and maneuver around big guys with shields. There is a parry, and when it works, it fucks. But when it doesn't, it fucks you. That's all I'm gonna say about that. There are multiple armor sets intended for each of the 3 combat styles, though like I said before, the magic and range skills aren't in the game just yet as of recording this. You can change which runes you have equipped to your magic staff in the runes menu, which is this little tab to the left of your main inventory. The 3rd tab is your quest items, by the way. I'm not sure if the game ever tells you that or if I just missed it. I'm also not sure if it tells you can customize your spellbook in the main menu. That becomes pretty important later on when you unlock a lot of spells. The enemy variety in the game isn't terrible, even though some of the enemy types can be pretty annoying when you're playing solo. It's important to only pull 1 or 2 enemies at a time in the more difficult encounters, as the aggro range for some enemies can be pretty large. Ward stones are a pretty essential thing to take into combat encounters. You can craft them at your rune altar with essence and stone, and they give you an overshield. If you do eat them like candy, you will get schistosomiasis though, so be careful. They increase your toxicity, and that's definitely gotten me before. I regrettably did not find Chthon at the castle, but I did get to have my first dragon encounter.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
After escaping from the castle, I decided to explore the area, and there were actually quite a few things to find. I came across this ghost that only appeared at night, and shortly later I found the amulet of ghost speak in the nearby well that let me communicate with him. He asked me to do something, and I immediately forgot what it was for now, but we'll get back to it, I'm sure. There are hidden areas you can find once you get your levels up, like these spiky thorns you can chop down, and these crumbling walls that you can mine with your pickaxe. Sometimes you'll find lore books scattered around the world, and they help place the story within the world of RuneScape a little bit more. There are also dungeons scattered around the map at these icons, and it turns out these dungeons were actually built by the Dragonkin. Inside the dungeons, you can find unique resources like vault shards and vault cores, which are used to build fast travel points that you can travel between with law runes. After looting my first dungeon, I noticed I at some point received an XP boosting potion for cooking, so I decided to engage in some good old-fashioned RuneScape grinding. Now with 35 cooking and all the clean water and post-nut clarity I would need for quite some time, I went to head out for the next quest, and my base was immediately raided by goblins, which did seem to always happen at the least convenient times. I don't love that the goblins drop these packs you have to open. It becomes pretty tedious to open them all sometimes, but maybe it's better for inventory management on those big jobs. But like, would it kill you to give me an open all button, Jamflex? I also find it funny that in classic RuneScape fashion, you get all the essence and runes you need from PVM and never have to mine them yourself. You also get health potions from them sometimes, which is nice, but it would be nicer if I had just one more hotbar slot so I could actually equip them. The loot you get from chests is okay, but I didn't very much enjoy receiving the same wooden barrel schematic for the 15th time. So going into the swamp at night was actually pretty creepy. Dare I say there were even some Dark Souls vibes. I thought I'd try and use one of my new traversal spells to get down the cliff a bit faster, and I was immediately punished for making such a high IQ gamer move. The swamp had some new resources like clay and swamp tar, as well as the first herbs I had come across. Before long, I found my way to the mysterious door in question, and it turned out to be another dungeon, a swamp dungeon, if you will. This dungeon was also full of enemies and made for an overall okay time. The goblin at the end tells us what we need to know for some reason, and then we have to head back to the wise old man for a debriefing. Along the way, however, I discovered this spooky swamp cave, and though I could literally not pick up a single other thing without being over encumbered, I decided to head in. 'Cause what's the worst that could happen? The wise old man told me my search for Cthon would next take me to Ghornfell, a land of savage beastmen. Before venturing to the new area, I decided to build a lodestone and take the resources with me to build a second one so I could easily bring my stuff with me when I built a more advanced base. Then it occurred to me the reason the cores were so heavy was likely because you can just carry one around with you to drop your load anytime you want to fast travel. So I ended up dropping my load in the swamp for easy access to the materials there, and I went back in the sketchy cave to settle the score. After killing the shaman boy, I got a Bandosian amulet which started another side quest, goblin diplomacy of all things. I also found the recipe for a new bow hidden in another nearby cave, and I don't know if you can build in here, but I bet this would make a sweet base location. I brought that amulet back to Zanuck, who told me it was part of a ritual or some shit, and this was only half of it. She told me to check the ruins nearby, and after sharing some of my delicious steaks with this goblin here, he told me where I might find the other half. Zanuck gave me a sweet new cape for finishing the quest, though it had the same stats as the other capes I already had, so that was kinda lame. As I sat admiring my new drip, I remembered our friend we ghosted earlier, and in true RuneScape fashion, I was getting thoroughly distracted. So earlier, that ghost fellow, whilst bitching existentially about his wasted life,
Fare thee well at once. The glowworm shows the matin to be near, and begins to bale his ineffectual fire.
asked us to help lay his friends to rest. I did what any good RuneScape player would do and immediately looked up a guide, expecting this to be frustrating and obtuse. Finding myself correct in that assumption, I headed back to that inconspicuous cave I had found the bow in earlier, to talk to the second ghost at nighttime. The third ghost is in the swamp, so I was glad I dropped my load there earlier. And the fourth ghost is near the windmill in the temple woods. After speaking to all four ghosts, I went back to the church at the start of the game and remembered them at the shrine. The reward was XP tomes and several skills, which I'm actually pretty cool with. So, back to heading to Ghornfell to look for Cthon. We are 0 for 2 on finding this person so far, and our urgency has been questionable, so my hopes of success are certainly dwindling by this point. The first step was to make my way back through the swamps of Dagobah, and along the way I found what I'd call the first real boss so far. A huge abyssal demon was wandering around the western side of the swamp, and it turns out I must not have 85 Slayer yet, so we're coming back to that guy later. When I arrived in the Fractured Plains, I quickly realized why it was called that, and almost fell into some sort of hellmouth where it looked as though the land itself had been ripped apart. In this new region, I found several new creatures, many of them familiar. There were wolves, sheep, terror birds, and chinchampas, but most of all there were beastmen. Good lord, there were beastmen. They're called the Garou, and they're native to this land. Their culture is based around battle, and at some point their tribes were unified under a lady named Lugrim, who defeated all their previous kings in combat. Under their new goddess, Lugrim, they made a deal with the Dragonkin to repel Bandos's goblin armies, who had made an alliance with the Saradominist humans on the island that were already at war with the Beastmen. Lugrim would defeat the god of war and go on to be devoured by Kuldra, the Dragon Queen, created by Lugrim and the Dragonkin as part of their experiments, now the God Eater that is High Queen of the Garou and the dragons on Ashenfall. That's what the wiki says anyway, I don't fucking know. So it turns out we're actually here to extinguish a dragon rebellion that's been taking out human settlements on the island. That's not uninhabited, by the way. I'm still not sure how this information was left out of our recruitment contract, but at least we're out here seeing the world, right? Exploring around Ghornfell, I found some important new resources like copper, tin, bronze, and dwellberries, and shortly began construction on my new house. And I really started to enjoy the building system. I will say this is made way more enjoyable when you decide to build on flat ground, but you can raise and lower foundations, so it's pretty well done. Unlocking new facilities gave me access to bronze tools and weaponry, which would be my next goal. The ore detect spell really came in useful trying to find all the ores I needed to accomplish that. After gearing up to the new tier, the Ghost of Cthon told me I needed to summon the dragon by crafting a horn he had designed. Yeah, apparently he died because he thought he could take on the dragon by himself. To summon the dragon, we need a dragon tooth from the Highlands and bloodwood sap from the poison swamp. To get to the Highlands, I ended up fighting my way through this mountain pass full of beastie boys. I had no problems doing this at all.
No, goddammit!
I found another dungeon along the way, and since I needed another vault core to drop my next load, I decided to run through it. Inside, I found recipes for the paladin armor set by interacting with the statues. The Highlands were a storm-swept wasteland full of dragon corpses and hostile beastmen. The lightning strikes were just that extra little thing to keep you from ever feeling comfortable standing still. And that, much like the dragon attacks and raids, was more frequent and annoying than immersive. I found a good place to drop my load and then went home to make a bronze pickaxe so that I could harvest the iron in the area. As soon as I got back with my bronze pick, I found the dragon teeth we needed for the summoning horn, and what do you know? I need the iron pickaxe to harvest them. To make that, we need something called blightwood, so I'm back to square one. I was able to make an iron sword and an axe though. The paladin set I found seems to be more expensive than iron armor for the same stats, so that felt like a scam. But it did look cool in a non-RuneScape kind of way. My best guess as to where to find blightwood for the steel pick was the Bloodblight Swamp, but the thing about that is, it's a poison-covered swamp. So I'd need to make anti-poison potions to avoid such symptoms as the classic dying from breathing. I also found a king's token in the castle nearby. This started a quest for Vanica to investigate the nearby Beastmen camps, which took me to a shrine on top of a mountain guarded by some very unfriendly clergymen. This encounter really felt like the game emphasizing the importance of anti-poison potions, and I'd need some soon anyway to deal with the poison swamp and the poison dragon, so I went back to mess with the game's potion making. This was not very intuitive at all. After checking the recipes page in the journal and finding what I needed, I had to make clay vessels and then fire them in the kiln, as well as making some more charcoal. There were other potions I could also make, but I figured there would be plenty more herbs to gather in the swamp later, and I headed back to the shamans. The anti-poison took this fight from commit seppuku levels of frustration to pretty easy, and I feel like that's good game design. Any consumable that I have to go out of my way to make that isn't borderline necessary, I will ignore every time. After leading the local religious leaders to paradise, I placed some ram horns and shock bulbs I found in the area on the altar. This gave me some sort of venerated tchotchke to schlep back over to Vanica. This is where this side quest gets interesting to me. Vanica just kinda drops mid-conversation that the Garou were captured and experimented on by Zamorakian forces back in the day, giving rise to the Beastmen in a similar fashion to his own ancestors being turned into werewolves. I don't know if I just spacebarred through whatever quest told us that Vanica was related to the people who became the werewolves, but I found that to be a pretty neat revelation. For all my efforts, I received a cape with the same stats as every other cape I already had. Next, it was finally time to venture into the real swamps of Dagobah, the putrid hellscape that is the Blood Blight Swamp. I brought the materials to drop another load in the new area. The first thing I saw was another Abyssal demon, but this time I was ready. Like a true slayer, I killed him and I ripped out his spine. It turns out in Dragon Wilds, you just get the drop. There wasn't really much else to see in the poison swamp. I found some gold and silver ore and poisonous plants. But it didn't take me long to find what I came for. The Blightwood grew its roots on trees throughout the swamp, and Bloodwood sap was only found on trees in the southernmost area. I went back to the base and I discovered I had unlocked a pretty awesome new weapon, and I have no idea why the Abyssal Whip is the direct upgrade to an iron sword. This part of the progression feels completely borked, but here we are. I was also able to craft the iron pickaxe to mine the dragon teeth for the horn. Before crafting the horn to take on Velgar, I thought it might be wise to upgrade my ranged weapon. By this point, I had heard that you can get the crystal bow in this game, but I didn't know how. It turns out you have to visit all these blue trees, like the one on the mountain near my house. I stopped by all the trees pretty quickly and got myself the crystal bow, which I believe is currently the best bow in the game. And again, the progression is feeling scuffed as hell compared to RuneScape. With anti-poison potions and the strongest melee and ranged weapons I could find, it was finally time to craft Cathan's summoning horn and slay the dragon. And so, equipped with iron arrows, a fresh set of paladin armor, and a dream, I entered the final boss fight of the early access. The fight really wasn't too bad. I tried both combat styles a bit, and it was far easier to dodge his attacks using ranged. The anti-poison lasted the whole fight and made the poison pools pretty much ignorable, except for the ones falling from the sky. The closest I came to a problem with poison was actually from my own ward stones, so maybe I should have slotted some health potions in there. It wasn't necessary either way. I took the dragon's severed head back to the wise old man, and he kept babbling on about an evil that could run itself 1,000 years.
No need to tend it.
So I didn't ask too many questions. He did give me a cool shield and an XP tome for all the combat skills though, so I ended up at the level cap for attack and actually got 20 levels in magic and range, though they do nothing right now. I can also make the Dragonfire shield now, because the wise old man just gave us a visage. It's at this point that I realized my hopes of a RuneScape-like progression system weren't really realistic, and this game wasn't trying to be anything like RuneScape. I had made a list of complaints and suggestions throughout my playthrough and recorded it all, but I just don't like having a long section of complaining at the end of the video, so I'm just gonna stick with what I would like to see added. I really think there should be a mantle button. It feels a little weird that there's not. I'd like to see more video settings, like a toggle for motion blur, camera distance, and some settings for creators, like the ability to detach the camera or quick hide the UI. And I really see no reason why you can't pause the game in single player mode. Most of the other complaints I had with the game I've mentioned throughout the playthrough anyway. It doesn't feel a ton like RuneScape to me, but like I said, I think that may be the point. The roadmap they put out shows that they plan to do more to the game very soon, and I'm sure that'll solve a lot of the problems that I have with it. For what it is, I think it's pretty fun. These kinds of games are always better with friends, and I chose to play through it solo before I recommend anyone pay $30 for an early access game. after playing it, I still don't recommend you do that. Wait for this to have some meat on its bones, so to speak. As a longtime RuneScape player and lover of many survival games, I am the target audience of this game, and I did actually like it. Now go away.